on a very high level overview, I think the most cherished moment for me would be me engaging with Satya Nadella's posts on LinkedIn and then writing about that in a, documenting all my interactions with that and sending him an cold email and getting a reply from him. And on his fifth anniversary as the CEO of Microsoft. So I think that really stands out for me in terms of experience because he's a leader that I really admire and I sort of aspire to walk down his career path someday. And I just believe it's LinkedIn that sort of has helped me reach out to him. But it's not a professional opportunity of sorts, but I think it's definitely the most cherished moment I have.
In the same vein, what are your recommendations for those who want to land similar opportunities via LinkedIn?
Okay, so there are three important parameters that you should probably aspire to have in your profile. One, I also did this mistake. I'm guilty of doing this mistake multiple times over my presence on LinkedIn. Is keep your profile heading very crisp and very to the point. A lot of people think that because I've won so and so event, I should probably put it there. Maybe I'm the national winner of some case study competition, or maybe I'm the delegate of some prestigious international conference. The fact is, ultimately, when you're trying to reach out to people who are 20 years elder to you, who will be the ultimate people deciding on whether you should be given this opportunity or not, you don't even know about the event. So the very prestigious or the very precious part of the real estate is a LinkedIn profile heading. And a lot of people sort of waste that describing about things which are not a lot of people care about. So if your aspiration is to get into a product management role in a top technology or an internet first company in India, you should definitely talk about if you have done some internships and product profiles previously, or a big brand that you've done an internship with, or a big product that you have launched, but that has got some recommendation or some recognition at the national or international level. For example, if you have worked in a YC funded startup and you have launched, say, one of the more engaging features there, you should probably put that. Put a dash line talking about your interest, that is product management, and then say that you're from so and so college. Because let's not assume that colleges don't play a role. It does. For example, if that other person is from a community of IITians, then putting IIT XYZ will really help you get noticed by that other person. So that is the first important step, to have a very optimized profile line and not sort of talk about a random event that you sort of won or a conference that you sort of participated in. The next step is to have a very clear, treat LinkedIn profile as your resume. So have a very clear replication of everything that you have done on your resume on your LinkedIn profile, be it as an internship, be it as a project. So when I say that, I have experience in solutions architecture at AWS, but my profile just talks about those headlines, but nothing about what I did there. Because a solutions architect usually looks into 100 different things. Unless I tell them about, my interests or my work in the public sector, where I worked on the IoT space and I did some work in healthcare space, not a lot of people will probably even take me seriously. So that is the second aspect. And the third aspect is, of course, having a very precise communication to the other person. There are two ways of doing that. One, of course, is sort of sending them personalized invites on LinkedIn. Second is engaging with them on a, engaging with their comments or their contents on a multiple level, be it through engaging with their posts or tagging them in your posts or mentioning them in a comment in someone else's post that you think is relevant to both of you. So three steps, I think that should really do. There's no magic formula, of course, but usually this is something that has been really helpful.
Right. But would you say that these three rules, three steps apply just the same to anyone who also wants to look for opportunities in areas that aren't necessarily an area of expertise for them? Suppose someone wants to veer off the beaten path and try something different.
I think yes, and I think no. The reason I say yes is because when I started as an IIT BHU undergrad, I was a pharmaceutical engineering major. I had no formal training in subjects in any of the pharmaceutical engineering subjects. The only thing I knew was physics, chemistry, maths, because that is what I sort of gave my exam in JEE, and that is the only background that I had. But I was keen on exploring the healthcare industry space. and in a top multinational company, because I thought that will give me the best exposure into the do's and the don'ts of the industry, right? Uh, and I got a supply chain internship in Pfizer, which is among the top two pharmaceutical companies in the world today. So I think I did not have any expertise or experience or knowledge in the space. The only thing I had was interest and passion. And of course, aided by luck, I was able to sort of reach out to the right people, convince them that this is who I am and this is what I'll be doing. So please give me a chance. And supply chain is usually an area that is typically dominated by people from chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, and even MBAs. Right? So that is what I even saw on the job. No one was from first year. And even though people were from first year, they're usually, say, a master's student. So the first year of their masters were usually the freshmen. The reason I say no is because there might be a lot of areas which even I don't know about. Maybe you want to become a poet, but LinkedIn probably is not the best platform for you. Maybe you want to become a musician or an artist, and maybe LinkedIn just is a place where you can showcase your portfolio, but nothing beyond that. You probably won't get opportunities out of that. Having said that, I mean, there are a lot of people. I mean, if you know the founders of Minimalist, they use LinkedIn as a nice platform for talking about their work and the company that they're doing. You also had Saptarshi come on the show and then share his experience about design, and also I think those are really interesting people to sort of ask this question. Uh, in an overarching sense, if there is an audience for a particular topic on LinkedIn, you'll usually find, I mean, this three-step framework very useful for the context. If not, I mean, I think no amount of social media can probably help you.
Right. So coming to my penultimate question, I'd like you to tell me how to make the distinction between a spurious opportunity on LinkedIn from a genuine one, because there's always the question of reliability. So how do you pick wisely from all your options?
Right. So, professional opportunity. I mean, I'm assuming that you're talking about a professional opportunity here.
Yeah.
So, usually, what happens is there is a huge element of uncertainty associated with almost every professional opportunity you come across on LinkedIn. There are different career pages now posting on behalf of different companies saying that so and so company is hiring for these three profiles. Comment interested, or just share your email ID in the comments and we'll drop you the details. Right. That usually is a marketing gimmick from them, trying to build an emailing list so that they'll spam you with different emails or different offers later, right? I don't think anyone has sort of got a professional opportunity just by commenting interested on a page or a post, right? So usually what happens is you discover opportunities either through emails that people send you, or personal messages after being connected with them, or as a LinkedIn job. So if it is a LinkedIn job by a reputed company, usually it is true. If it is by an up and coming startup, I think a thing that has worked out for me is that connecting with someone from the company and then cross verifying if they are aware that this opportunity has been posted on LinkedIn. And if yes, then it can also be a nice opportunity to ask them about how you could prepare to sort of maximize your chances of being selected. This helps you in two ways. Of course, be better prepared when the interview time comes. Also, sort of show them that you're really interested in this role, because not a lot of people will take this effort to sort of reach out to someone in that company, tell them that they're interested in this particular role, and then even apply, or say even ask for the steps to apply. So you should ideally do this, I think, and not trust all those pages who sort of tell you that this so and so company is hiring, then comment interested. So this, I think, is the clear distinction. I'm not sure if you had anything else in mind while asking this question.
No, that was quite satisfactory. But coming to my final question, what are your 2 cents on LinkedIn Premium? Because we know that you don't have LinkedIn Premium and you yet managed to use the platform quite effectively. So what is your take on that?
I think LinkedIn Premium is a totally different concept. Let us not forget that LinkedIn is not just a social media or a professional social media. Uh, it is a B2B sales place as well. A lot of people generate a lot of leads and then do a lot of B2B sales on top of LinkedIn. And for me, what has worked was I have just experienced about 30 or 40% of all the LinkedIn features, and those have given me all the everything that I've sort of had in this 3 or 3.5 years journey on LinkedIn. There are a lot of things I don't know about. For example, Sales Navigator, for example, premium accounts, for example, LinkedIn Learning, and I don't even fret about that. I don't even try to understand what they are and how do they sort of benefit the other people. From my experience, and this is also a common topic amongst discussions when we sort of meet people from different backgrounds who are sort of active on LinkedIn. They say that if you have a premium account, your posts get a lot of reach because the LinkedIn algorithm sort of prefers them over other people's content. So if you're someone who sort of lost job in a COVID situation but is really desperate to get a new job, I think it makes the perfect sense to sort of switch for a LinkedIn premium account and then apply for those roles, or probably start even sharing content, right? Like anything that you probably do should do with a LinkedIn premium account, because your post will automatically get a 10x or a 20x boost. But unless you're looking for that, or you're looking to sell something on LinkedIn, I don't think it makes any sense to sort of pay for that money and then take for a premium account. uh, the only other benefit of premium account is that you get access to a lot of LinkedIn learning courses. I haven't done any of them, and neither have talked to anyone who has sort of done a lot of those courses. I cannot say how valuable they are. But assuming they are, I think the only benefit a student probably could get is getting the access to LinkedIn learning courses. Yet I'm not quite sure how the ROI will look like, so I'll probably refrain from comparing that. Yeah, I mean, I don't think LinkedIn Premium would have helped me in any other way. I'm pretty good without a LinkedIn Premium account.
Right. Thank you for those really insightful inputs. And that unfortunately brings us to the end of this conversation. And speaking of content creation and engagement, please stay tuned to our next episode, which is content creation with Kamalika. But having said that, thank you so much for joining us, Pratyush. It was really great having you here.
Thank you for having me. If my experience sort of helps people, I'll be probably
Yeah, thank you once again. And thank you also to our listeners for tuning in. Do tune in next week also and see you on the other side.